Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So chapter 22, Imam Haddad speaks about enjoining good and forbidding evil. What we call Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. Now enjoining good and forbidding evil is mentioned throughout the Quran and in many places. And also in the Hadith, you find many Hadith in regards to which one good section, Imam Nawawi's Riyadh al-Salihin is an excellent read. For a lot of these topics that we've read, Imam Nawawi's Riyadh al-Salihin, Guides for the Righteous, is an excellent read. Nevertheless, let's go through what Imam Haddad says. He says, "You must enjoin good and forbid evil, for this is the pivot around which religion revolves, and is the reason why Allah revealed His books and sent His messengers. It is considered a duty by the consensus of all Muslims, and a great many passages in the book, in the Quran and Sunnah, enjoin it and warn about its neglect. Allah has said, 'Let there be from among you a nation who invite to goodness, enjoin good acts, and forbid reprehensible ones. Such are they who are successful.'" And that's the end of the verse. In many contexts has Allah attributed enjoining good and forbidding evil to the believers. On some occasions, even before attributing faith to them, and on others, before mentioning the regular performance of prayers and the giving of zakat. So, enjoining good and forbidding evil, meaning what we call Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, it's something which has been mentioned throughout the Quran in many different ways, and in some contexts, even before Salah has been mentioned, even before giving zakat. Sometimes it's even been mentioned before attributing Iman to the believers. That in of itself is a big statement. That shows how important this is. Allah said, "Those of the children of Israel who disbelieved were cursed by the tongue of David and Jesus, son of Mary, because they rebelled and used to transgress. They restrained not one another from the wickedness they did. Indeed, evil was what they used to do." Then he brings another verse, "And guard yourselves against a chastisement which cannot fall exclusively on those of you who do wrong." The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "Anyone of you who sees a reprehensible thing," so anyone that sees a wrong thing, should change it with his hand. If he is unable to, then with his tongue. If he is unable to, then with his heart, which thing is the weakest degree of faith. And that's the end of the hadith. Imagine that. The Prophet ﷺ says that if you see something wrong, then physically stop it. If you cannot physically stop it for some legitimate reason, then verbally stop it. And if you for some legitimate reason cannot verbally stop something wrong, then from the bottom of your heart you should know that this is evil. But the Prophet ﷺ adds that this is the lowest of the levels of faith. Now that's the lowest. There's nothing below the lowest. There can't be. There's nothing below the lowest. But that's the lowest, just knowing that it's wrong. How many times do we see something wrong in life? Especially with social media, we become so accustomed to seeing wrong. Whether it be a video or something of the sort in regards to one person being bullied by the other, one person's rights are being transgressed by another, whether it be on a national level, whether it be a national crime, international crime, or just a small community issue. We just pass by it and don't think much of it. Where is that degree of faith? Where is that degree of Iman? We should at least have, if you can't not do anything about it, at least have that fear, have that hate for the wrong that's taking place. Then he brings another hadith. "By the one in whose hand lies my soul." So this is the Prophet ﷺ saying this. "By the one in whose hand lies my soul, you will enjoin good and forbid evil, or God will soon send His punishment upon you. Whereupon you will pray and not be answered." So you will make dua, but your dua will not be answered. Why? Because you do not enjoin good and forbid evil. And he brings another hadith. "The one who is not compassionate to our young and respectful to our elders, and who does not enjoin good and forbid evil, is not one of us." Imagine the Prophet ﷺ. We know the Prophet ﷺ to be so loving and kind to all people, but he's saying, "You're not from amongst us if you don't have these qualities within you." So enjoining good and forbidding evil It's been emphasized throughout the Quran in many different ways, too many to mention at this current point. Hence why I'll just rather stick to the text of Imam Haddad here. Know that enjoining good and forbidding evil is a collective obligation. Fard al-Kifaya. So Fard al-Kifaya means that whilst it's an obligation, it's not an obligation upon every single person. Not every single person is has the capacity of enjoining good and forbidding evil. And this is for different reasons. Okay, everyone's level of what they can do is different. Nevertheless, he says it's a fard al-kifaya, meaning at least some people from the community should be doing it. Say, so as long as some people from the community, or at least one person from the community, does this action, then the obligation has been dropped from others. But it doesn't go to mean that say, okay, as long as there's one person doing it, no one else needs to bother. No, everyone else should aspire to do the same thing as well. So he says, which if discharged by some is not incumbent upon the rest, meaning it's not necessary upon the rest, and the reward being proper to those who discharged it, I mean those people who enjoy good and forbid evil, they get the proper reward. If no one does it, everyone who is aware of it and able to act is held responsible. Your duty when you see someone neglecting an act of goodness or committing an act of evil is to make him aware of the good or evil nature of the act, as the case may be. If he does not respond, you must counsel and put fear into him. So counseling could be by telling him the mistake, giving him the news of the rewards of staying away from some things or doing certain things, putting fear by telling him about punishments of a certain action, for example stealing or lying or backbiting or anything of the sort. If he is still not rebuked, then you must coerce him and even beat him and compel him to stop the evil he is engaged in, and break the forbidden instruments of distraction and pour away the wine and restore illicit money to its rightful owners. Let me just mention something here as a point, okay, before someone takes my words out of context here. I'm reading Imam Haddad's book, and you need to remember Imam Haddad has written this book at a time where we're talking about a good 200 years ago, give and take. You didn't have the Met Police, around the corner. You didn't have 999 to dial and just call the police and just investigate the matter. It was a very different lifestyle, a very different way of living. You take matters into your own hand. Okay, this is not what I'm advocating at all. I'm just reading through the text. Essentially speaking, if you see something good, enjoy it. If you see something evil, forbid it, to the capacity that one has within the realm of the law. Okay, within the realm of the law, of course, that one resides in. And of course, you try to balance and try to reconcile between what Islam says, but you have to ultimately follow what the law of the country is. Okay. This last degree is only for those. So the last one I mentioned. This last degree is only for those who have either dedicated themselves wholly to God, or are authorized delegates of the ruler. The first two degrees, which are the appraisal of things as good or evil, and counseling, are only neglected by confused, ignorant people or scholars who are inadequate. Know that enjoining obligatory and forbidding prohibited things is itself an obligation. Enjoining recommended and forbidding disliked things is itself recommended. Whenever you enjoin good or forbid evil and are not listened to, you must leave the place where evil is being committed, and those who commit it until they return to God's ordinance. Likewise, you must detest sins and those who persist in committing them, and abhor them for the sake of Allah, and this being a duty for all Muslims. See, what happens is that when you're, say for example, preaching to someone, counseling someone, and they're not listening to it, okay, they're continuing in their wrong, then there's no point of you staying. If you are hopeful that you can change and your words are having an effect, then it's different. But if there's no hope and there's nothing that's changing, then it's better for you to divorce yourself from that situation, disassociate yourself. Why? Because you need to look after your own faith. You don't want to be pulled into doing something wrong. You don't want just because of association that you start to now like these things, you start having a taste for these sins, or letting go of certain actions. By hanging around people who don't pray, you started to let go of your prayers. Or by hanging around people who do sin, that you started to sin as well. Even though missing prayers is a sin in of itself. When you become angry because you were wronged or insulted, and this shows on your face, and you find that your loathing of that deed and the person who did it are more than your loathing of any evil that you see or hear about, then know for certain that your faith is weak, and your honor and wealth are dearer to you than your religion. This happens quite easy, especially on the da'wah scene. When people are preaching or giving da'wah, calling people towards good or forbidding evil, sometimes we're doing that, we're giving da'wah, calling people towards good and forbidding evil, but by them rejecting our words, we become angry. But the anger, if we were to investigate it, isn't because of they're doing something against the commands of Allah, but rather is because of how they are disrespecting our words, how they've reacted to our words. So it's more of a personal anger rather than an anger for the sake of Allah. And it says in that case, you know what, you need to sort yourself out. This is a weakness in faith. And you need to sort yourself out here, because your anger isn't true. Your anger is personal and it's not true for the sake of Allah. You are permitted to remain silent if you know with certainty that if you enjoin good or forbid evil, your words will neither be listened to nor accepted, or there will ensue obvious harm either to yourself or your property. This is when enjoining and forbidding change from being an obligation into being a tremendous virtue, which indicates that the one who does them loves God and prefers Him to all else. And if you come to know that an evil will increase if forbidden, or that the harm will involve other Muslims in addition to yourself, then silence is better and in some cases obligatory. Beware of dissimulation, for it is a crime. This is to remain silent for fear of losing a position. So sometimes it happens that a person, they stay quiet, they do not enjoin good or forbid evil because they might lose their position, or their income will be affected. So, and this happens when you're in a position of authority, whether it be a religious authority normally. This is to remain silent. So explain what dissimulation is. It's a crime. This is to remain, meaning that, let me explain to you. This is to remain silent for fear of losing a position, money, or any other benefit, the source, or any other benefit, the source of which is the person committing the reprehensible act, or any other depraved person. Know that when you enjoin good or forbid something, this should be done sincerely for God, gently, wisely, and with compassion. For these attributes do not combine in one person who acts and refrains in accordance with his injunctions, but that his words become effective and revoke reverence. A powerful response from the heart and a sweetness in the ears, seldom shall his words be rejected. Anyone who has true vigilance for God, reliance upon Him, and has acquired the attribute of mercy towards his servants, cannot prevent himself from removing every evil that he sees, except when prevented from doing so by means which he cannot overcome. Beware of spying. So earlier on he says, look, if you're truly doing this for Allah, then you will have godly qualities inside you, meaning that you will be gentle, wise, kind, merciful. You will say things in a very loving way, because you're doing it with sincerity. You're not doing it for your own person. Again, you're doing it for Allah. So have godly qualities. Have the qualities that Allah wants you to have, that He's told us to have. Beware of spying, which is seeking to know the private affairs of other Muslims and their hidden sins. So when it comes to giving da'wah to someone, don't try to seek out their ills. Leave that to themselves. You're not their angel that you have to overlook at every single issue. The Prophet ﷺ has said, the one who seeks out the secrets of his brother Muslim will have God seeking out his secrets until He exposes him, even should he be in the depths of his house. Know that concealed sin harms only its doer, but when it becomes public and it is not stopped, its harm becomes general. When sins and reprehensible things become obscenely in evidence where you live, and you despair of truth being accepted, then isolate yourself, for in this lies safety, or emigrate to another place, which action is better. For when chastisement falls on a place, it includes both the wicked and the good. I mean, when the punishment of Allah comes upon a community, there's not going to differentiate between who's the good and who's the bad and something of the sort. No, it's going to come upon everyone. For when chastisement falls on a place, it includes both the wicked and the good. To the believer who was neglectful in supporting God's religion, it is an expiation and a mercy. For those for the others, it is a chastisement and an affliction, and God knows best. So saying that, look, when it comes to certain good people or so-called good people, when they are included in that chastisement, it may be because that they did not uphold enjoining good and forbidding evil. For some people it may be a mercy because they are truly ones that did do their best, and then they have nothing to worry about. Allah will reward them. But for others it will be a punishment. Allah knows best. But in essence, enjoining good and forbidding evil, everyone can do it to some degree. Everyone is responsible for someone. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ tells us in the hadith that كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته, that every one of you is a shepherd and you will be asked about your flock. So we all mean that we all have a responsibility towards another person. It could be a spouse, it could be siblings, it could be your own children, it could be someone else, but we're responsible to someone. Normally most of us, we have responsibility towards someone. So in some capacity, yeah, we can enjoin good and forbid evil. We can show the way towards goodness, and when something wrong, we see something wrong, then we can say something, we can do something about it. And it does take work. It's not necessarily a case where we just do it once and that's it. It's an ongoing thing. When you try to guide someone, you have to be patient, you have to use wisdom, you have to be kind, and you have to be persistent. And these are all parts of the package of enjoining good and forbidding evil. But remember this simple rule, that if you see something wrong, then try to stop it physically. If you can't, then verbally. And if you cannot do that, then know from the bottom of your heart that that thing is bad. And that's the lowest of faith. That's a very important hadith to remember. And there's plenty of hadith in this regards, plenty of verses of the Quran in this regards. I would highly recommend Imam Nawawi's Riyadh al-Salihin to go through. He brings many chapters, many hadith and many verses of the Quran in that regards. We leave it there, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.